Okay, so I want to go over how to get easy food and how to solve the food issues. I know a lot of people are struggling when they run out of food for your economy, and I'm also going to go over the different types in the different lands. So, first of all, as a general rule, you're going to have two food supplies per region, and normally it's berries and wild animals. Berries are really, really good. Now, what you can do is you can act a policy where you can do strict fasting. So a citizen consumes skips every fifth meal. This will reduce the food consumption. The other one is then hunting grounds, and that's wild animals on rich deposits breed twice as fast at the cost of crop yield. Now, you do lose crop yield, but let's say, for example, you're in a region, for example, like here, you can see this is fine. But if I go to a region, for example, like here, you can see the fertility is very, very bad. So if anything, if you are struggling, this is a really good way of getting basically double the amount of meat you can get without forcing the animals into extinction. And then also you can, if you're really struggling, you can go for trapping and then advanced skinning. And just from the meat supply, you could get a really good try. But that's only if you want to. I think this is a bit of waste to go this way. I'll explain to you why. But like, let's say you have a different region and it's not that important to level up. That would be a good way to get food. So when I build like all these other small regions, and what I do is sometimes I concentrate on the food, and that way I don't have to worry too much as long as my main region is making the money. Now, the second thing I would say is farming. Now, farming, it's a really, really good resource. Like, if you can make these plots and try to keep them small, when you do a really big plot like this, you can see it takes a long time and sometimes you don't even finish it. But if you do them in small segments and you refresh them, so you can see I'm doing a fallow, then wheat, I'm doing wheat, fallow, and that way I'm giving time for my crops basically to regenerate. You can see it's fallowing, so now I'm going to get 92% fertility. What I would say is the best thing that you can do, let's say you're struggling really, really bad with food, what I would recommend, the best thing to do for a starter is to build a burgage plot. Now, what you want to do is you want to build a burgage plot, for example, like this, and you want to basically map out a longer distance like so, and you can press the minus button and you could reduce the amount of houses there. Now, what I like to do, typically speaking, is do one. So I was going to show you, let's say this is a road here, for example, like this. Do one facing the road, just to keep it easy. And you can build a lot of houses like this. You can build, for example, 4 houses. I'm just going to show you this in real time. And the benefit of this is that you can then build vegetable patches. Now, vegetable patches are a very good way. Unlike fertility, which will depend on the ground. So if you haven't really got a good fertility on the ground, you're pretty much stuck. But these vegetable plots are very, very good. In fact, if you're going above about 150 to 200 families, it's probably the best thing to do. So as soon as you start the game, you ideally want to go straight away and to get this. Now, with a heavy plow, it's only really worth it if you're going for farming. And you can see, for example, I've got a great farming enterprise here. And I got one farmhouse, and then the farmhouse is right next to the windmill, and then that turns the flour and wheat into grain. Then it goes into flour, and then very closely it goes to the bread. And you can see I have a lot of these places, and you can see that's why I've got a massive surplus. In fact, I've got so many communal ovens because I'm getting such a big supply. But the benefit of these little houses that I was mentioning earlier, let's say if I fast forward these, when these then get transported, is that you can then very easily build these vegetable patches. Now, the vegetable patches are probably the best or one of the better ways of making food. One thing you could do is you could import the food. Now, this is probably my favorite way. It's better to start an economy. Normally, when you lack in certain regions, so for example, like in this region here, you can see we have a berry supply, but like regions, for example, like this one over here, you can see I've got a lot of mining, and you can see in this region I can literally make a lot of money just by literally exporting. So you can see, for example, like here I can build here a rich deposit. I can build very, very simply a mining pit, and then right next to that I can then build a bloomery, for example, like that. And then very, very easily, I can then start mining and I can start selling. So I can make weapons with like a level 2 burgers plot. I can, for example, make a blacksmith. And then I can very easily just start selling, for example, sidearms. And I can sell them for 8 coins each. And I can make a very good supply of money. So what I could do is I could then buy the trade routes. Or if you've got a situation, for example, like where I've got a lot of money anyway and it's not the end of the world, I can just buy the food. It's not the end of the world. So that is a really good tip, I would say, is concentrate on what makes you money. If you're unsure, let's say your region doesn't have a rich deposit, charcoal burning is very, very good. You can see, look here, I've got charcoal, and charcoal actually sells quite lucratively. You can see, for example, if I go here and trade and I scroll down here to charcoal, you can see it's right now it's on 1, but you can see that's because I've flooded the market into the ground with all my other regions. But normally, typically speaking, this would sell for 5. Charcoal would sell for 5. And I think if you just buy, yes, you can see we can sell it for 5. So what I could do, for example, is I could predominantly focus on this. Or my favorite is to build a deep mine, build the iron ore, and then use a level 2 burgish plot to build a blacksmith. And if I go back to this to this area over here, as I was talking about with the houses, you build a vegetable garden. Now, the goat shed is okay, but you're getting hides is worthless. The chicken coop is decent, but the problem is the eggs is just not enough to fulfill. And the vegetable garden is only 15, and you can literally build a massive vegetable garden, and this would be enough. In fact, if you do, for example, just 4 of these, what that means is the people living in this house, their job would be to tend the garden, and then turn these all into vegetables. What I would recommend is for their work, like, you know, you can see you can reassign someone a workplace. Give them a job which is not that active. So, for example, we'll log in camp, they're always going to be working. But let's say, for example, a job like the church, and they don't really do that much. Most people in the church, they just basically stay pretty much inactive. Church only really uses stuff, for example, like burying bodies and stuff like that, so they can spend most of their time tending to the garden. So that is a very, very good way of getting food. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about is barley and malt. Depends on your region. Now, generally speaking, the economic side of it is probably the best. You know, I would ignore beekeeping, advanced beekeeping, and orchardry right now, just because where we're at this game in early access, there's no real use for these things now. But if you can do trade logistics and better deals, you've got a good way of getting food. One thing you could do is use foreign supplies. Now, foreign supplies, I'm not the biggest fans of, and I'll explain to you why. Let's just go to one where I have, you can see, for example, like here. I can get foreign supplies, and what that will allow me to do will give me a passive income of a food cart or firewood store. So I'm just going to choose, if I go here, and I go here and I choose a food cart, and I could just build it in a market like so. Just going to put it near the burgers plots, just give it this high priority. The only downside with this is you can see, for example, this uses regional wealth. So I think it equates to about 4 pieces of bread. So once this gets built here in a second. So you can see here, so what the people can do, the residents, you can see, look, I'm selling a bread for 4 coins. Now, the downside is it doesn't use the treasury. It uses your regional wealth. So if you haven't got a lucrative area, this isn't really one to go with. So what I would say is, if you are going to import food, let's say you're like, okay, you know what, I need food really badly. Try to hold off from these as long as you can. Go for trade logistics, and then go for better deals, and then go for charcoal. That would be the best thing that you could do for any region, because the better deals is going to reduce import tariffs by half. And the charcoal is a good money maker. So if I go back here to that region where I showed you, for example, I think it's over here. And you can see, for example, we've got a charcoal kiln here. And you can see, look, the money. You see, you've got plus 40. We're exporting iron ore, so let's just stop doing that for a second. Just stop both of these. You can see, look, we've maxed out on charcoal. We're just basically exporting it. And this is a good way of making money. And because then import tariffs are are reduced by half when you do it, you could then buy the food, worst case scenario, for cheap. You can buy it for half price, so like 6. So you're basically, and don't forget with these charcoal kilns, the benefit is you're producing 2 charcoals for 1 firewood. So in effect, in one turn, you're getting double, maybe you can say 10 coins. So technically, you'll be enough. And you can build as many of these as you want because it just relies on trees. All you got to do is build a forester's hut, and then you can have like infinite supply of charcoal coming in. And you can see, for example, like here, that's the bread. So that's probably the best ways of making money and solving the food issue. And you can see I got some of these burgish plots here. These are providing vegetables as well and keeping my entire town afloat. And you can see here, that's enough vegetables sort of thing out. But that should be the general one. If you're really struggling with food, what you could do, worst case scenario, which is not ideal, but you could make people homeless. But it's not really recommended because I know people suggest that, but you want your town to grow as much as possible. So you might have to micromanage your economics and just sort that out. But yeah, that is basically how to sort out your food. Hope you enjoyed this video. Give you a bit of a tip. And the hunting cap, you're pretty much fine. If you're really struggling, for example, like here, let's say, for example, your food supply is far away from your town. What you could do is you can just literally, for example, let's say here, your town is frozen for a second. But let's say, for example, your food supply is far away from your town. What you can do is if you go over here and you build, you can force the animals to relocate like every single time. And you can see now it's close to my town. So now I can get food quicker. And I can use the wild animals, and especially this policy here, the wild animals policy, it should be enough for you to have food. And if you don't have the wild animal, you're going to have some rich resource, like for example, like here, the mining, you can see 1k regional wealth, and that's all from us just selling charcoal and planks, which are worth nothing, but the charcoal, as you can see. And then regions where you got clay, you're laughing, it's the same thing. You just make it into roof tiles and you can sell those. And then, for example, like here, you can see we've got a food issue. It doesn't matter because I'm selling roof tiles for 6, and with 8, and I'm just importing as much food as I want. Even though I haven't got the better deals, I'm making so much money I don't have to worry about it. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. And of course, I'll catch you next time. Take care, guys.